everybody laughs.
Hello. Hey everyone, welcome to A Fistful of Dice. My name is Matt. I am here. I'm just off camera. I move stuff around for our purposes this evening. If you're here, if you're joining me live, thank you for supporting my Patreon. I really appreciate that. If you're watching this after the fact, please feel free to check the description down below where you can find a link to the Patreon, and you too can join us for these monthly live streams, as well as gain access to a bunch of cool content that I put out on a fairly regular basis. So I've been talking about this a lot over the last few weeks here. I was cleaning some stuff out of my parents' place, and I stumbled across this, which I might end up rotating the camera so that I can look at it the right way and you guys can look at it the right way, but I think this should work fine, and hopefully the glare isn't too bad either. But anyway, so this is a notebook of stuff that I have not looked at in many years. This is kind of a mishmash of stuff. It's like a novel that I was writing, as well as a bunch of art. I used to really be into art, so there's a lot of art in here. There's some maps, there's some like lore notes, and there's also some D&D stuff, mostly centered around Wordia, which was that I was really getting into Lord of the Rings at this time and was reading a lot of fantasy literature, and was really into fantasy stuff. So that's what we have here. So I thought it would be kind of fun to sort of go through this notebook, for me as well as you. This is stuff that I haven't looked at in a very long time. I barely kind of flipped through it when I first found it, and then thought that it might be kind of cool to go through it sight unseen for the most part here on the stream. So that's what we're going to do. And as always, you can feel free to toss any questions that you have into the chat. I will be keeping an eye on it. I see Jeff is here. Hey, Jeff, how's it going, man? And if you have any questions concerning anything that you see in this folder, listen, I am opening myself up to this. There is probably some very embarrassing stuff in here, but also there's going to be like some cool stuff, and maybe some stuff that I'm not even expecting. So I'm very much looking forward to this. So let me turn on this lamp really quick, and I think that might help cut down on the glare a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. That's fine though. Okay. Oh boy. All right, here we go. Okay, so this on the front here, it says Wordia, concept art and sketches. And then down here it says MT Click 02. So first of all, I don't remember this, but apparently I had a pen name that was MT Click, which is a terrible pen name. And 02, which means that I christened this notebook 18 years ago. So, and a lot of the stuff in here is older than 18 years. So, oh boy. Okay. So, let's see. Which side should we start on? Let's, I think this might be a novel over here or part of one. So let's warm up to this because I'm not ready for that yet. Let's get in on some of this art over here. So I know who this is. So this was, oh man, this is, what was his name? Oh God. Hang on. Okay, I can't remember his name, but this was essentially the Aragorn of the story that I was writing. This is about as good as my art ever got, which is like not terrible for like a 12-year-old, but once you get to be like 15, 16, it's like, not so good. I wish I could remember his name. I think it started with a T. It was something that didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but anyway, you can tell I did not like drawing hands because I had a cloak that like covered up his arms and hands, just like lazy. I liked drawing faces and I liked drawing like shoulders and torsos and stuff. I hated hands and I hated feet too. Very Rob Liefeld of me, like covering up the stuff that I don't want to draw. So, oh hey, Tim is here from Tabletop Terrors. Jeff asks, what is the T for? It's for Thomas. My middle name is Thomas. Yeah, Reluin Riverwater. No, it's definitely not that cool. Yeah, isn't that Scar? Like, look at that. It's got the little stitching on it and everything. It's like a cartoon Scar. Okay. Here's more of that cloak action. I think there were dragon people in my setting because I really liked Dragonlance and I liked their dragon people. So this guy's name was apparently Cloud. Because I really liked Final Fantasy VII. And I think he was gray. I think he was a gray dragon. I really liked Protoss from StarCraft. And you can kind of see that there's kind of a Protoss thing happening here. He sort of has like tendrils on the back of his head. And he doesn't have a mouth and stuff like that. Like, very, very Protoss from StarCraft. So, and I believe this is the same character here. Look at these cloaks, you guys. This is the same character here, but in color. So yes, he was gray. Very gray, in fact. Everything about him was gray. So you can see that I definitely had a style, which was huge shoulder pads with cloaks hanging from the shoulder pads to hide hands. And also, Cloud here has a dress, a skirt, a big long thing coming down that hides his feet, so I didn't have to try to figure out how to draw dragon feet. So there's that. This is there were elves in my setting that were evil. I think this is one of the evil elves. They weren't dark elves, but I remember, look at hands. Look, hands and feet. He's wearing flip-flops. This guy's he's taking out the trash. It's like 10 at night and he forgot to put the cans out, so he put his flip-flops on and grabbed his magic staff to take the trash out. So I think these elves, they had like tattoos. Like that was their whole thing, was they had like cool magic tattoos that would glow. I really liked, you can kind of tell that I really liked glowing eyes. I thought glowing eyes were really neat. I mean, who doesn't really? But there's definitely like, no pupils, glowing eyes, no pupils, glowing eyes, no pupils. It's very like Warcraft, StarCraft sort of thing. Okay, I think this is the big bad guy. Which, look at that character design. the cloak covers everything. He's literally just a cloak. Apparently his name was Kakadar, which is yeah, that's about right for a 12-year-old naming a bad guy. Kakadar, if I remember correctly, okay, all right. So I'm piecing together this lore here. A lot of this is going to be piecing together the lore and trying to remember exactly what was happening in this world. I think that this guy Kakadar, he was a big bad guy, and he died a long time ago. And he like liched it and put his essence into an amulet. Very very Sauron, you know. He put his essence into an amulet, and then the amulet was carried by Cloud. But then Cloud died in the first book. He became corrupted by the amulet and died. And this guy took it. See, he's wearing it. There we go. He's wearing the little amulet. So, Kakadar. Oh, man. Kakadar's amulet is here and here. So, at least you got to give me points for consistency. Yeah, new Lord... new Lord of Ash for Dragon Grid. Kakadar. Here is... This must be Cloud with his hood up. Let's talk about how wide Cloud is. This guy is wider than he is tall. Cloud is dummy thick. Okay. Here's more of the lead character. I don't remember his name. We'll figure it out. Again, shoulder pads, cloak. I was definitely a lazy dungeon master even back then. Holy crap. Okay. We've got a name, folks. His name was Tango. But look at this. He threw his cloak back, and we can see that he does indeed have hands as well as a sword, and it looks like it may be a bow because he has a quiver on his back. He was very Aragorn. And you know what? There's actually some writing here. And so we can learn a little bit more about this guy. This is crazy, guys. I remember all of this, but like it's, oh man. Okay. So orphaned as a baby, pretty standard. The human was taken in by the elf queen Clistai, who raised him in the ways of the elves. At about this time, the queen had a child, Princess Mistai. As Mistai was being trained as a princess, Tango was being trained as a ranger. So gender roles exist in this world, apparently. The princess met Tango while he was assigned to be her bodyguard. For 5 years, the two worked together, and in time, they fell in love. So, I mean, this guy's just Aragorn, but less interesting, right? Orphaned, raised by elves, fell in love with the, elven princess sort of thing. So I think this is from 2003. So this is actually, I say more recent. Obviously it's more recent, but not more recent like 2 weeks ago. But you can see, I got a little bit better. First of all, hands with digits, right? Oh, apparently I made Tango a half-elf because he has elven ears and it says half-elf, so was maybe taking a little bit of inspiration there from Tanis from Dragonlance. And I also have a little bit like a background element here. There's like an axe with like a skull on it and an arrow going through it. That's actually pretty dope, you guys. Also, you'll notice that Tango is the worst name. Tango lost the shoulder pads. He still has the cloak, but it's kind of like pinned to his tunic here. But you can see he's wearing chainmail underneath. He's got a little like mithril situation going on here, and you can barely see it, but the chain for the amulet of Kakadar is there too. Yeah. Jeff says, I mean this with love. But I wonder how much LOTR success would change if Aragorn's name was Tango instead. Tango has gotta be, even for like a 12-year-old. Tango is a really stupid name. Okay, so... Alright, so 2002, so I was 14 when I made this notebook. Like I said, a lot of the art and the writing is from before I was 14, but this right here, I was 15. This is 2003. So I was 15 when I drew this. And still, I thought that Tango was an okay name. We have our first dwarf. I think, yeah, there was a dwarf character in this world, and I cannot for the life of me remember his name. I'm sure we'll find out at some point as we dig deeper here. This isn't terrible. He's got hands and he's got feet. You'll notice that I covered up one of his feet with a rock because I didn't feel like drawing it. He's got some like plate armor over chainmail. He's got a big old axe. He's kind of leaning on it. So he's got a little bit of a pose, you know, and there's like a bone on the ground. There's just like a random like dog bone looking thing right there. Oh man. Okay, let's go a little bit faster through this stuff. Okay, so we're going backwards now. Now we're going backward. This was the original design for the dwarf character. And whoa, look at that half cloak, guys. Again, covering, he's just got his hands like all tucked up in there. This is interesting. I don't really remember this, but this dwarf has like a breathing apparatus coming out, and his armor almost looks like, it almost looks sci-fi-ish, kind of. So I don't really know what I was going for there, but maybe we'll see more of that. Oh, who's this? Hello. So this is from 2001. So I was, can you do math? I was 13 when I drew this. Can you tell? Oh man, I wonder if this is the princess, the elf princess. Interesting. Okay, here's that dwarf again, but with color. Okay, there he is. Really? Yeah. Yo, we got more cloaks. Hatchmark armor with bone on the ground was my signature. Oh, who's this? This is not Tango. This is somebody else. That's Barker. Doesn't that look like Barker? Oh, shit. I'm going to frame this to him and send it. I'm not too sure who this character is. But apparently he was a character. Here's another elf, I think. You'll notice tattoos. More tattoos. Okay. Ooh, look at, guys, this is an action scene. Look at this. This is violent. Okay, so this must be before the Tango redesign, because he's still got the big shoulder pauldrons on. You'll notice that he doesn't have the amulet, so I don't know what that means. Yeah, those are fingerless gloves. Yes, I was really into this guy. Everyone had fingerless gloves. It was the Tim. It was the 90s. No, it wasn't. It was the early 2000s. It may as well have been the 90s. This is really violent. There's a lot of blood coming out of this orc. I'm assuming this is an orc. It's actually a pretty good orc. I like how Tango's hair is like the guy at the DMV. Like, what even is that hairstyle? Ooh, this looks like another action shot. Look at that. Huh? It's like fighting an elf. He's got a long sword and a dagger. That's pretty neat. He's got, I do want to say, I like how Tango protects his most important assets. So his shoulders and his crotch are the two things that he has armor plating over. There's so much here, you guys. We got to go a little bit faster. Oh my god, there's a lot more than I was thinking there would be. Okay, so this looks like another... Okay, okay, so this is very clearly Tango again. I really liked Tango. But he's holding his sword in a way that is... listen, I was a 13-year-old boy. How did I not pick up on that? We got another cloud, looks like. Same over the cloak over the hand situation. This is kind of cool. It's like a elf sorcerer guy, and he's like doing some magic. Look at that, individual fingers. I must have really put some effort into that. He's like half a person. I don't know what that is. He's like an orc or a goblin or something. This one has writing on it. Gornak Trollbane, Bloodskull Clan Chieftain. Yeah, that orc's got chest hair. Dope. Oh, look, a card game. Oh, a card game, you guys. Whoa. This is a card game. I was making a card game out of this. Oh my god. So there's a card for Tango, a card... Thorn. Thorn is the dwarf's name. Wow, I was really reaching. Cloud is here. And then some guy named Isaac. I think that might be Barker. That might be the Barker guy. He has a crossbow, it looks like. Okay, so everyone has an attack and a defense. And they have melee, missile, and elemental attack and defense. They also have a cost, card number, type, special ability. Tango has a special ability called Slash. Thorn is straight up holding the gun. Okay, I'm remembering something about this world. Okay, I think the dwarves were like high-tech, like scavenger dwarves who had like muskets, and I'm pretty sure they had tanks too. And I think so. I was big into this game called Mage Knight, which was a miniatures game. It was the first HeroClix game. It was like a HeroClix used the same like system. But anyway, I was really big into this game called Mage Knight, and one of the factions, they were called the Black Powder Rebels, and it was really cool. They had like steam-powered golems and like tanks and guns and stuff. And so I think that the dwarves of this setting were kind of like that. They were Drogus, basically, which was probably the most interesting thing I did with this setting, guaranteed. The rest of it, you could take or leave. So this looks like another elf, but maybe like I don't know why, but I'm getting like aquatic vibes from it, right? Like, doesn't that seem like an elf that lives under the water for some reason? I think it's the scale mail underwear here. Got another orc or a goblin or something. This is an elf named Faragoth. Again, cloaks covering up the hands. Interesting texture on the armor. Also, it looks like he's got two like curved swords, and also I don't hate this. This is kind of cool. Like, it's a little like symbol on the little banner there. Oh, yep. Okay. Siandar, sea elves. Okay, so this is this is kind of interesting because you can almost see like how this story and this setting like just started out like a copy paste of Lord of the Rings and like Dragonlance stuff, but then started kind of getting its own vibe going with like the dwarves live in the desert and they have like tanks and stuff, and there's like sea elves going on. Like, it's starting to get a little bit some stuff going on. So this says Hobgoblin Chieftain, Orc Warrior, Ogre. There's some monsters there. This straight up looks like a blurg from The Mandalorian. This is actually a kind of a cool creature design. I don't hate this. I'm assuming this is like a mount of some kind. That's like not terrible. I kind of like the anatomy of it, and like the big kind of chunky legs and the short stubby tail. Has like a little like webbed beard thing. It's like a dino dragon mount thing. It reminds me of the those little mounts in the Golden Axe games. Okay, this must be a redesign of Thorn. He's got the plate over the chain, but he has an eye patch now, which is kind of dope. And an earring. 2 earrings. Dang. All right, Thorn, get it. This looks like a halfling. Fingerless gloves. Gotta have them. This person's upside down. This looks like Barker again. There's Barker. I love that I drew Barker. I don't know who this is. This is a guy. Actually, don't hate his pose. It's kind of cool. He's got like a shield and a big ol' chunky sword. Also, my cloak game was improving. Look at that cloak, actually looks like it's draped on the shoulders. Oh, here's Cloud again, but this, oh, we can see his feet and his hands, and he has a tail, and he has a scythe. Damn, all right, that's cool. Here's another one of those elves, bad guy elves. They had silver eyes, apparently. Yeah. Again, with the flip-flops. This is an orc of Nardox. I don't know what that means. Look at the detail on that chainmail, though. It's pretty dope. Dude's got a pretty cool beard. This looks like it might be Faragoth. Look at the swords. Holy shit, guys, look at Airship. Whoa! That's actually pretty cool. That straight up looks like the airship from Provokers. I'm not even... That's pretty cool. Okay. Alright, we're getting to the bottom of this pile here. That's good. Okay, here's a tank. Yes! Dwarven steam tank. That's pretty cool. Look at... The cannon has like bayonets on it. These dwarves do not mess around. Okay, here we go. Here's some more writing. I think most of the art is on the left side and most of the writing is on the right. So I think we'll get to more writing here. So this is orc, and it says orc and goblin. It looks like the goblin was just a small orc. So I went the Warhammer route with it. Orc society is unorganized and ruthless. It is orc instinct to be extremely hostile and violent. They range from heights of 4 to 7 feet. Oh, wow. And are usually hunched over with bent legs. Orcs are dumb. It is a miracle they were able to construct weapons and armor, not to mention airships. Okay, so airships were a thing in this setting. Yeah, okay, interesting. Oh, cool. Here we got some weapons. These are actually pretty dope. Look at these weapons. These are neat. It's like this like double sword is kind of cool. I like the shape of these the swords. Those are neat. Ooh, who's this guy? This is a cool... I don't know who this is. Kind of an interesting monster. It's got horns and tusks. Kind of looks like a Warcraft troll. Oh, Troll Blade Fist. It says it right here. This is from 2002. Here's an orc. Orc Bladesman. Okay. He's got blood dripping off his sword there. It actually looks like he got like peanut butter on his sword that's dripping off. This is like a... I don't know who this is. Orc Shaman, it says. You can't see his face. These are all very Warcraft. I think this is around when I was playing Warcraft 3. Here's like a Goblin Archer. Dragoonian Warrior. So this is like Cloud, but not Cloud. Apparently they were called Dragoonians, which is terrible. Oh my god. Guys, close-up of Tango. And apparently his last name... It's Caracton. Tango Caracton. What the hell? It was like drawing an elf. Oh hell, look at this, look at this, look at this. Look at that. It says the final battle. It's like some big monster fighting a little dude. It's actually pretty dope. I don't know. Oh, you know what? I just remembered a story about this art. Okay. I got in trouble at school for drawing this during class. I think it was middle school health class, if I remember correctly, which is like already just like, oh. But I distinctly remember drawing this and getting in trouble about it. That's really funny. Here we have a map. Nate, I see you're in the chat, dude. I have maps here, buddy. Look at digital. What? Head of the curve, baby. It just says the land of Wardia, and it looks like I only mapped out the landmass and didn't do... I was like drawing in the geographical features, which is interesting. Down here it says 100 mon. Mon must have been like a distance, a measurement of distance. Here's like a dummy thick orc. This is like a soldier of some kind. He has like a Templar looking helmet on. That's kind of cool. Oh, here we go. So here's a map. A map of the land of Wardia. So we have, it looks like we have 4 like regions or nations. There's Dwarf, Eastern, Elf, and the Shadowland. Okay, pretty basic. So up in the Dwarf place, it looks like it's mostly deserty. Calamid Peak, or Calamid Peak and Calamid River. Oh, there's a town here called Caracton, which was Tango's last name, so I don't know if that was supposed to be connected or what. Maybe he's from there, but that's like the Dwarf lands. I don't know. Oh, you also notice I went back to Miles here. I dropped them on. Calipos is another Dwarf settlement. And then down here in the eastern lands, which I think was like the humans, there's the Merkur and Merkur Hills, the Eastern Current, Shora Lake, Caldor and Mount Caldor, Korhal. Hold up. Korhal, that sounds... Hang on. Oh man, I think Korhal might be a thing in Aeronoth, you guys. Hang on. Nate, do you remember offhand if that was a settlement on the map? I think it may have been. Hang on, let me see here. Holy shit. Yeah, okay, so in Aeronoth, there is a region known as Korhal. There's Korhal right there. That's funny. Oh my gosh. I was really hoping that I would kind of run into stuff like that. Oh, that's really funny. Okay. And then Shadow Forest. Dark Mountain. Wow. Calisp. Here's the elf places. Calypsi. Canader. Shordai. Sharada. Ariush. Shiren Sea, Sacred Island, and Aria Bay. I think that I would have tried to make things sound a little nicer, but... Ooh, here we go. Dwarf Flash Trooper. So see? Look at the dwarves. They had, like, muskets. Man. Okay, so Dwarf Flash Trooper. Desert Protection Armor. Flash Rod. Axe. Flash Pow, Flash Rod Igniter. Okay, so I think the main like inspiration for these guys, I'm pretty sure, was I had recently read Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind manga, and I think that's like the goggles and like the gas masks and the armor and stuff and like the guns, like it's all very reminiscent of Nausicaa. Okay, Dwarven Flash Troopers are the most formidable opponents in the Dwarven military. Most wear the desert armor worn by their ancestors, the Desert Dwellers. Most also carry several flash pows. Although they are very strong and have very high endurance, they have limited mobility because of their heavy gear. That's smart for living in the desert. Dwarven Flash Troopers still remain the main force of the Dwarven military. The dwarves first used the flash powder as an explosive, but some desert dwellers found that it could also propel objects at an alarming speed. Flash rods are used by filling the barrel with flash powder, making sure to pack it in good and tight, then a lead ball is inserted. Pulling back the stud to the stock gives it its best range. Then you light it with a flame or spark. Then, by releasing the stud, it will travel down the shaft at incredible speed and strike the powder at the barrel. The powder will ignite and explode, launching the lead ball outwards. Oh, interesting. So it doesn't work like a musket. It's like a crossbow with an explosion at the end of it. I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense, Matt. I have to talk with your creative director. Okay, so here's another elf. He's got a sword. There's an orc. Here's another map. Oh, interesting. I wonder if this is newer or older. It looks mostly the same except for the peak of Wardia is up here. This is called the human territory. There's no core hall. And the Shadowlands say unexplored. Interesting. Okay, so that's all the stuff. I'm setting this aside because that looks way too much like Barker for me to not. Okay, see, that was a bit of a journey. Okay, so here's all this art. God, this is really fun. Okay, this is all like writing over here. We're not gonna read all of this. Oh, there's some art too. But I do want to just like look through and like even see what this is. Okay, I'm gonna take a drink really quick. I'm gonna catch up on the chat. Farragoth is a dope name. Yeah, Farragoth is not bad. Is this when we accidentally stumble upon evidence of Barker secretly time traveling to change the past and ensure Haptap is created? Was in my 20s playing Warcraft 3, Nate says. Hashtag old man. No, not at all. Not at all. Okay, so trying to make sense of this here. So this says Chapter 1. Okay, Tango's definitely in this. Okay, let's read a little bit here. Oh, I already hate this so much. Okay. My art is one thing because I don't do art anymore, and I don't like value my artistic skill, but my writing is something that I still do for like most of my job. Okay. The elf stared into the cool, brisk water that he held in his hands. He saw the reflection of a young warrior with hard features and cold blue eyes within the water. The mere image stared right back. The elf was instantly awoken as the cool stream water splashed on his pale skin. He dried his face with the edge of his frayed woodland cloak and sighed. Blinking a few drops from his eyes, he flicked his wrist, sending the remaining bit of water to the soil. Very detailed. Oh, this is Farragoth. He stood and took a deep breath of the crisp night air. It felt cold and tense in his chest. He closed his stern eyes, letting the serene sounds of the forest enter his mind and drift away. Farragoth! His eyes snapped open, and the smell of bacon and eggs was almost overwhelming. His stomach growled loudly, and he half expected the birds to spring from the trees in fright from the roar. He rubbed his belly and turned back to camp. It was easy to find his way back. The dim glow of a healthy fire was present, and smoke drifted above the patch of trees, not to mention the lingering scent of food coming from that direction. The lingering scent? I just said it was overwhelming. Okay, so he goes back to camp. There's a dwarf and a half-elf. Come now, it's not that cold, said Farragoth, patting the dwarf on the back. He grunted and scratched his untidy brown beard. Maybe for you, but it was never this cold in Brakil, the dwarf mumbled. I'm used to it. Maybe I've traveled these woods too long, Farragoth sighed, taking a seat next to the half-elf. I admit it's a bit chilly, but this fire is more than enough, the half-elf said. He kept a skillet of bacon hovering over the fire, watching to make sure it didn't burn. Is that bacon almost done? Grunted the dwarf. This is really, for a first chapter, to draw the reader in, have a discussion about bacon. Almost. Be patient, Thorn. Okay, so the dwarf is Thorn. I think the half-elf must be Tango then. Almost. Be patient, Thorn. The half-elf said... Oh, be patient, Thorn, the half-elf said. The dwarf muttered something in Brakili and fell silent. Brakili must be the dwarven language. How far would you say are we from Core Hall? Huh? How... Tango. Yes, the half-elf is Tango. Okay, asked Farragoth, unhooking his sheathed saber and laying it near his sleeping mat. The half-elf shrugged, keeping his eyes on the meal. 1, maybe 2 days if we rest frequently, which, if not for Thorn, we wouldn't do. Tango's being a bitch, said Tango, his eyes flicking teasingly over to the shivering dwarf. Thorn grunted and adjusted his rusted armor. Why would a dwarf wear rusted armor? That's interesting. And maybe we could eat something other than bacon, if not for you, lad, mumbled the dwarf to nobody in particular. Okay, so let's skip ahead a little bit here, because I'm not going to read all this. Oh, here we go. We got a battle scene up here. Tango, wake up, lad. The gruff sound of Thorn's voice awoke Tango. He instinctively went for the dagger at his side, but stopped when he saw the dwarf kneeling over him, axe in hand. Tango sat up quickly, rubbing the sleep from his eyes to wake himself up. What is it? What's wrong? Tango asked groggily as the forest around him became clearer. Goblins, a raiding party, I suspect, Farragoth chimed in. He was standing up on his mat, saber drawn. The blade gleamed in the dying firelight. Tango felt around for his sword and felt the scabbard not far from his bed. He pulled it towards him and unsheathed the blade. He could see Farragoth noticeably grimace at the sound of swords being drawn. Tango gripped the leather-wrapped hilt with a sweaty hand and tried to remain as quiet as possible. I can't see a blasted thing, Thorn whispered harshly, squinting into the darkness. It was then that Tango picked up on the goblin's conversation. He wasn't fluent in the guttural language of Orkneyan, but he picked up a few words. Thorn glanced at Tango, waiting for a translation. Farragoth moved up alongside the other two, his keen elven eyes picking out the goblin's dark outlines through the shrubbery. Several dark creatures stood on the road, their dim red eyes visible through the brush even for the dwarf. They hunched over and were about the size of a small child. Farragoth frowned as he caught a glimpse of steel weapons. They must be tracking someone. I'm not sure who. It seems they've lost his trail. Oh, they seem to be tracking someone. I'm not sure who. It seems they lost his trail, Tango said quietly as the goblins finished off the conversation. Sorry, there's typos all through this. Thorn listened intently to the quiet sound of booted feet and clanging armor as the goblins headed in the opposite direction. Okay, so maybe not a battle. I saw the word goblin and just assumed they were fighting goblins. Okay, so that wasn't much. I remember writing more than this, but that must just be chapter 1. But then there's more stuff here. There's another chapter 1. The other thing about this is I remember that I wrote this story several different times. Like I would start it and rewrite it. Oh, this is a lot of writing. I'm not sure what that is. We'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so this I think is an earlier draft of the story that started different, but it has Tango in it again. So this is chapter 1, To Core Hall He Came. Okay. Oh, this is even worse, you guys. Okay. The hazy darkness was suddenly broken. I wrote exclusively in passive voice when I was 13, apparently. I'm gonna edit this. Hang on. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Let me. Hang on. Where's my pen? Okay. To Core Hall he came. The hazy darkness was suddenly broken as the bright yellow sun broke through the clouds like a blade through cloth and split through the fog that had fell upon the city of Core Hall. So we're in Core Hall now, you guys. The beams of orange glow cut holes straight through the Stormbringers. It was a sight to behold as the clouds seemed to part to make way for the rays of sunlight that would soon streak down to the village below. Is it a city or a village? Make up your mind, Matt. Come on. The dark black clouds soon lost their foreboding appearance and shone a dull, calm gray. Tango Karakten grinned up towards the sky from the shadows of his dirty green hooded cloak. His cool blue eyes searched the sky for the descending moon, but found it just as it fell behind one of the Caldor peaks that rose above the valley below. He squinted as the early morning sunlight broke through the last black rain cloud. I was really into the sun breaking through these clouds. The young warrior looked down at his mud-caked boots and stomped a bit of the grime off on a wooden plank of the bridge. The town of Core Hall stood before him, surrounded by a short wooden fence. Okay, so I call it a city, a village, and a town. Nobody was about just yet, save a few farmers tending to their fields, but They were at least a mile away and were only specks in the distance. The gate had not yet been opened. Okay, so Tango's trying to get into Core Hall. He's talking to a bird? Jeez. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay, here's an interaction with another character halfway through page 2. Tango heard some rustling and quiet talking within the walls, then numerous latches and locks being opened. Then, with a creak and a whine, the gate slowly swung open. Behind the door was a short old man with gray hair that stuck out in all directions and a shaggy mustache of frizzled whiskers. He wore a simple tunic and pants along with some leather boots. Good, I'm glad that he's wearing clothes and that we took the time to describe the clothes. The small cloth hat rested upon the very top of his head where his hair began to diminish. That's not a terrible sentence. Now, what are you doing out here in the fog and mud so early? How long have you been sitting there, my young friend? The elderly man's voice was etched with concern. Wow. Tango merely smiled, bowing lightly to the man. Not long, all but an hour. I have traveled from Shornai and seek food and lodge here, but I must find it soon, for I leave again tonight. A nice subtle place in a corner, if possible. Ugh, he's such an Aragorn, right? Tango looked past the man at some passing villagers who entered and exited the shops. The old man seemed stunned. Shornai, you say? You don't look elvish to me. He eyed Tango's ears, which were dull and as human as possible. I'm a half-breed. My father was a human, my mother an elf. I know I don't look it, but I've lived with elves all my life. The old man nodded, scratching the shaggy white stubble on his chin. That would explain your weapons, he added, pointing towards the sword at his side and the bow at his back. Well, if you're looking for a nice secret place, try some of the old inns at the south end of town. They're right down this road, if that meets your liking, he said. Okay, so he's finding out about the about where to go. The old man's name is McGee, apparently. Okay, goes to the inn, orders some armor. Oh, hey, Thorn shows up here. Okay, yes, Tom, 2 more for me and Thorn, the older dwarf said loudly in the deep dwarven manner. Tango eyed the younger one. His beard was rather short, his face boyish. He was only about 40 years of age, which was the point of maturation for dwarves. Tango smiled, remembering the ritual in which he had to shoot an apple off a running horse's back from 30 yards away. It had taken him 3 tries, but he hadn't hit the animal. Jesus. Okay. Tango then returned to his meal, eating his fill and enjoying every bite. Okay, so he's eating a meal. Oh, action scene. Okay. So he leaves the inn that night. He's leaving. Tango looked skywards where the moon hung ominously in the clouded night sky. A few stars twinkled past the clouds, but they covered most. I was really into clouds. There were few passerby, so Tango realized that it had to be rather late. He was humming an elvish hymn when he was startled when a short, dark figure darted from an alley and stopped 5 yards ahead of him. Tango instinctively drew his blade, the metal gleaming wickedly in the darkness. Ooh, dang. All right, man. He took a defensive stance as the short figure raised a crossbow at his head. Tango had no time to react as the bolt left the crossbow. He closed his eyes, waiting for the missile to pierce his skull, but he felt it whoosh past his head at an alarming speed. Then he heard a low grunt behind him and turned to find a dark, cloaked figure, sword raised and a crossbow bolt through his chest. He lowered the blade as the man dropped his sword and collapsed to the ground with a moan and lay very still. Tango gasped as he realized it was the wanderer from the bar that had watched him. Oh, we missed that part. Sorry, guys. Dangerous folk in these here parts. You better be more careful, for I know what seeks you. You're not in a hurry to get your... You're not in a hurry to get to your grandma's house. You can't fool me, the dwarf spat. Tango turned. It was the young dwarf from the bar. The crossbow rested on his shoulder, and the other arm rested on the butt of a small axe. Thorn, right? I saw you in the bar, Tango said, half sheathing his weapon. Aye, it was me. Thorn Kanji. What? He held out a muscular arm in the traditional dwarven greeting. Tango followed, wrapping his forearm with thorns and shaking. Thank you, I owe you my life, Tango said, sheathing his sword fully and relaxing. Not your life, just an ale. I shot a blasted arrow for pity's sake, not that much effort on my part. Thorn said, strapping the crossbow to his back. Tango chuckled, patting Thorn's armored shoulder. But I would like to come with you. It's been 2 years since I've had a good adventure. Don't worry, you won't have to carry me, just my luggage if that's okay. Thorn pulled a large pack from the ground. Thorn's funny in this version. Tango grinned. If you're this lighthearted all the time, then sure, why not? I'm always ready for another comrade. Tango is very trusting. Tango nodded, starting down the street again. Great, you'll still owe me an ale, though. Don't think we're even now, Thorn called after him, pulling his pack up and following. The two companions disappeared into the darkness, and 2 red slits peered from an alley, smiling at how easy it was to trick them. Hopefully he would be able to track Thorn and Tango easily enough. How foreboding. Okay, so that... Oh, wow. Okay. So I think this... is from a different... I think this is from a different story, but there's a lot here. I wrote a lot. Look at this. Like, that's a lot of writing for me now, let alone, being a teenager. So, I'm if you guys are down, I'll read a little bit from this. I'm definitely not going to read this whole thing or even a good portion of it, but I kind of remember writing this. I think it's a short story, actually, and I think it's finished, maybe? Yeah, I think it might be finished. I think I wrote this over the summer one time. I think this is a more recent... This might be when I was like 14 or 15. So it's called The Sword of Finascus. Hey, thief! Someone was shaking me out of a dream. Rough hands pulled me away from the cold, calming embrace of sleep. I fought, pushing the hands away. They only returned, this time hoisting me off the hay that served as my bed. On your feet, scum! When my eyes opened, I didn't see the wooden ceiling of an inn or the blue sky of early morning. I only saw a dark stone wall and one large guardsman who didn't look extremely pleased. My hand instinctively went for the dagger. I'm constantly talking about how people instinctively are going for weapons. That's like I've in every one of these stories that happens. In this one, Tango instinctively goes for his sword. In this one, Farragoth instinctively goes for his sword. In this one, this dude's instinctively going for a dagger. My hand instinctively went for a dagger that wasn't there, and I realized where I was. I pushed the guard away roughly with bound hands. I can stand just fine on my own, I grumbled, brushing myself off. But what was the use? I had been wearing the same pair of filthy, loose-fitting trousers for 2 months, and my tunic wasn't much more than a dirty rag. Unshaven, smelly, I glared at the guard defiantly. What are you waking me up for anyway? I asked. You got a visitor. Someone wants to see you, the guard said. He was huge. Every time he moved, his muscles stretched the seam of his suit of boiled leather armor. Someone to see me? Aye, he nodded his large, shaggy head. You sure? Yes, he roared. Now shut up and come with me, filth. As you wish. As you wish. Hey, would you mind not calling me names? Shut up, he roared, turning on me with a threatening fist. I shrugged, taking a step back. Suit yourself. He led me from my dank cell on the basement floor of the dungeon to a flight of stairs lined with torches. He pushed me forward with the head of his spear. Okay, so I'm in a prison called Darken Guard Prison. Let's see here. Okay. The stairs led to a small guard's room lined with tables and kegs of ale. A desk sat in one corner, occupied by a drunken, sleeping guardsman who happened to be snoring very loudly. Spears and swords hung on a weapon rack along one wall, crossbows and muskets again, along another. Rayun Murdoch, I presume, said a hushed voice. I whirled around and noticed for the first time a man cloaked in black, seated in one corner of the room, his pale, skeletal hands folded calmly in his lap. He motioned for the guardsman behind me to leave, and the large man obliged without question, his armor creaking down the stairs. You are Rayun Murdoch, are you not? The man asked again. He was tall and lean, with almost corpse-like features. His eyes were a pale blue, almost devoid of color. His silvery hair fell in long tendrils about his shoulders. This guy is creepy. Yeah, that's me, but please, just call me Murdoch, I replied evenly. Very well, Murdoch. I have a proposition that might interest you. Please take a seat. Murdoch is a much better name than Tango, I have to say. He gestured toward a bench. I seated myself upon it, sighing in comfort. I had not sat upon anything not of stone in a long time. What was it exactly that got you locked up in Darkengard, Murdoch? A lot of things. My sins just kind of caught up to me, I suppose. I stole a few things, cheated several drunks, killed a couple guys that got in the way. What was it specifically, Murdoch? He leaned forward, locking me with his strange eyes. I was hired a few years back to steal some stuff from a local baron. Fenald was his name. He wasn't held in high regard by the locals, and they wanted some compensation for stuff he had cheated them out on. So the townspeople paid me quite handsomely to sneak into this guy's manor and steal some of his fortune. A few rings here, a couple crowns there. So I get the stash, and I'm on my way out of the door when you're discovered by the guards, the man finished for me with a strange smile. Yeah, I ended up knifing 5 of them. Jesus. And I get away with the loot. But 2 of the remaining guards got a good look at me, and before I know it, there's a 500 gold bounty on my head, courtesy of Baron Gerald Fanad. You were taken in by a bounty hunter? Bounty hunters, I corrected, holding up a finger. I doubt one of them could have taken me in. A bit arrogant, are we? He asked, cocking his head. No, I'm just sure of my abilities, that's all. I allowed myself a small smirk. This guy's quippy. Now that I've given you my life story, how about that proposition and a name, I requested. My name is not important, only the weight of my purse, correct? He jingled a pouch at his belt. My heart skipped a beat. Denebian gold. I could tell. A good amount, too. Denebian gold had a solid sound to it, nice heft. It was good gold. Tell me more, I told him. He smiled. In the city of Deneb, there is a large monastery. It houses many ancient relics of great importance. One of these items being the Sword of Fenascus. Guys, that's what it's called. Right, the childhood bedtime story. Fenascus was a great warrior of unmatched strength and courage. He wielded a silver sword. He defeated the Lich Tyr's army and saved the people of Deneb from Tyr's wrath, right? Correct. However, it is not simply a bedtime tale, Murdoch. The Sword of Fenascus is very real, and 2 nights ago it was stolen right from the monastery, under our very nose. The night guard's tea was drugged, and he passed out. That's when we believe the thieves nabbed the sword for themselves. 2 questions, I said. 1, who would want to steal some rusty old bedtime blade? And 2, where do I fit into this whole escapade? Well, Murdoch, the sword is believed to have had magical properties similar to those of holy water or paladinic spells. Historians believe Fenascus may have been a cleric, and the sword he wielded was enchanted against all things evil. So, you want to stop someone from ridding the world of zombies? No, you don't see it, Murdoch. The sword could be very dangerous in the hands of the wrong person. And in response to your second question, it takes a thief to know a thief. I smiled lightly. I prefer the term procurer of rare objects. Well, whatever you like to call it, we need the cunning mind of a thief to find the scoundrels who stole the sword. And from what I understand, you are no mere pickpocket, he said, his strange eyes sparkling slightly. My reputation precedes me. What do I get if I take the job? He smiled and folded his hands together. Freedom. It's not bad. This is not bad. Okay, so this Murdoch guy, he goes to the city of Deneb, and he meets Fredine? Oh, no, hang on. Let's see here. He meets a couple people. Man, there's a lot. They go to an alchemy shop. There's someone named Tessa. That must be one of the other characters. There's a gang called Black Dagger. Okay, here we go. Oh, they're going into the sewers. Daria is another character. The entrance to the sewers was padlocked and barred for good reason. I stood back and let the guard undo the lock. The metal grate swung open, and a great gust of stagnant, musty air hit me full in the face. I gagged and coughed, and one of the nearby guards vomited over the side of the wall. Pleasant odor, I muttered. Indeed. Revan. Darth Revan's here? Revan stood beside me, a handkerchief over his mouth and nose. He looked at me with what seemed like pity. I'll send a few men down with you, Murdoch. You'll need them. I nodded. Well, are we just going to stand around all day, or are we going to take a hike through the city's waste? Daria nodded. Let's go. She lit a torch and took the lead, disappearing within the shadows. I followed, Tessa and several guardsmen behind us. I'm remembering now that this is based on a D&D campaign that my family and I played, and I'm pretty sure that Tessa and Daria were my mom and my sister in our family's D&D game, because those names are really familiar, and I remember distinctly that Murdoch was my rogue in 3rd edition D&D. So this is either inspired by an adventure, or it at least has the same characters in it. If the smell was foul above ground, it was absolutely vile in the sewers. Confined to a small walkway along one wall, we trekked along beside a rushing river of filth and waste. Well, it's not exactly the Baron's manor, but I can see what the Daggers like about it. The Daggers are the gang, the criminal syndicate down here, I think. Daria rolled her eyes. Yeah, they're thieving rats, and rats belong in the sewers. I allowed her a smile. Besides that, of course, eventually you wouldn't even notice the smell. They probably stay warm and cozy. However, who would want to go chasing after them? One of the guardsmen vomited. See? Daria shook her head and continued on. Her torch held high. Oh, I read that sentence so weird. Daria shook her head and continued on. Her torch held high. It's because I put a period there for some reason. As we ventured deeper within the sewers, the last light from the grating above faded. The second guard lit up another torch, illuminating the rear flank of our tiny platoon of adventurers. I grew uneasy. The only sounds were the steady dripping of stagnant water and the echoing of our booted footfalls. I slowly drew a dagger, seeking comfort in the heft of the weapon. We came to a sudden halt as Daria stumbled a bit. I reached out and allowed her to keep her balance. Hands off of me, thief, she barked. I drew back, holding up my hands in an apology. So sorry. I wasn't aware that you preferred to plummet into 7 feet of scum than have someone help you. She scowled and lowered the torch a bit. There's a gap here in the walkway, but we can jump across. I nodded. Ladies first. Handing me the torch, Daria took a step back and leapt across the gap. She landed solidly on the other side, her feet sliding on the muck. She stood shakily and motioned for the others to cross. I made it across and Tessa leapt over, receiving my arm as help. She smiled her thanks. It was the guardsman's turn. The first leapt over and stumbled a bit. We managed to pull him up. As I reached down to help him, I noticed a stirring in the water. Don't jump! But it was too late. The second guard had just jumped. In wide-eyed horror, we watched as a 9-foot tentacle shot out of the muck and whipped him from the air. He landed in the scum and was dragged under by yet another tentacle. Holy crap, there's a... by the gods! Oh, sorry, guys. By the gods, Daria shouted. I'm getting all invested in this now. What is that thing? She drew her sword and stepped back. It emerged from the filthy water, a slime-ridden, blubbery creature with 2 beady eyes and a dozen tentacles. It gargled its war cry and sent a tentacle at us. Tessa ducked under it, holding her spellbook close. Okay, so Tessa is the wizard, which I think that is my sister's character. Daria, I think, is a paladin and must be my mom. Daria took a swing at the passing appendage, but missed and slipped on the muck. I pressed against the wall as it whistled by. I heard words, spidery, flowing words uttered from a woman's mouth. A great glowing orb formed on the end of Tessa's finger as she chanted the strange incantation. The monster squealed as the light burned its eyes. It swung wildly and knocked Tessa from her feet. The spell ended abruptly as her spellbook clattered to the floor. I readied my dagger, took aim, and threw. The weapon whistled into the beast, embedding itself into the creature's left eyeball. It roared in fury as its vision disappeared. Daria sprang forward, her sword hacking off 2 tentacles. They squirmed and fell into the muck, leaking green blood. The creature squealed and sunk into the filth, its cries becoming gargles as it died. Daria watched the water, her breathing heavy. The two remaining guards stared into the water with a frightened fixation. Tessa stood and wiped her robes of the muck, retrieving her spellbook from the floor. I saw the last glint of steel as my dagger disappeared under the water, embedded in the corpse of a dead monster. Something splashed out of the water, and Daria readied her sword. But it was only the guard, sputtering and coughing. We pulled him from the muck, and as he lay on the walkway covered in scum... We pulled him from the muck, and he lay on the walkway, covered in scum. Several deep gashes laced his stomach, where the monster's tentacle had found its mark. "You all right?" Daria asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, as all right as I should be, I suppose." So we fight like a monster. Oh, here's another fight here. "I'll go first," I muttered. I began to make my way across, my feet barely squeezing onto the narrow ledge. I gripped the side of the wall for support. The others followed, their weapons sheathed to provide more mobility and balance. "Murdoch," started one of the guards. "Do you know how much farther?" He was abruptly cut off as a crossbow bolt sprouted from his back. He lost his grip and fell backward, disappearing under the pool of muck. His body bobbed and then sunk like a stone. These guardsmen are having a rough time. "Go!" I cried. "Move!" I searched for the archers as I practically ran along the narrow ledge, my feet slipping and sliding. 2 lanterns came into view. They were hooded. The men had kept themselves hidden in the darkness. I leapt the last few feet and landed on solid ground, a knife coming to my hand. Daria made it next, her sword drawn. Another bolt struck the wall next to me, and a third sank into a nearby barrel. I skidded to a halt and crouched behind a set of crates. "Daria, Tessa, take cover!" There was a flash of fantastic light from the side of the pool. An orb of pure energy streaked past and exploded down the corridor. A blast of cold air swept over me, chilling me to the bone. There was a crackle of ice, and I realized what had happened. "Daria, now!" We both stood, weapons drawn, and rushed down the hallway. The 2 crossbowmen were covered in snow and ice, their feet frozen to the ground. I crashed into the nearest one, my dagger slicing through armor and then flesh. The man grunted, unable to move beneath the ice, and died. Daria stood before the second man, her sword wavering. His arm began to thaw, and he raised the crossbow. "Daria, kill him!" She didn't move. I ripped the dagger from the thief's stomach and whirled it towards the second man. It went through his neck and stuck there. The crossbow fell from his hands and clattered to the floor. Daria toppled, hugging the wall for support. Her face was pale. "Daria, what was that? Why didn't you kill him?" She looked at me without disdain for once and shook her head. "I couldn't kill a defenseless person." I sighed and pulled the dagger from the man's neck, wiping the blood on his trouser leg. The ice surrounding the 2 men melted, and the corpses toppled to the ground. Tessa approached, her spellbook in hand. The 2 remaining guards came behind with swords drawn. "Thanks for the stun spell, Tessa," I said. She smiled lightly. "Don't mention it." "We lost 1 man," said Daria, regaining her composure. The others hadn't seen her hesitate. It had been too dark. I decided to keep the information to myself. See, Murdoch, he's a rogue with a heart of gold. So anyway, that's cool. I forgot about this story. Yeah, Murdoch was my rogue. I played him for a long time in 3rd edition. He was a dagger guy, so he just had a bunch of daggers and he would throw them and stuff. He was like pretty basic rogue, but I remember really enjoying that character. So, all right, well, we're coming up on over an hour here, but we still got some stuff to go through. So let's just kind of flip through the rest of this stuff here. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. This has been a lot of fun. Blood Eye Clan Troll Barbarian. Okay, so there's another troll. That's another orc. Ooh, blank paper. Nice. Actually, a lot of this might just be blank paper, so there might not be as much as I thought. Oh, here we go. Here's some stuff. These are like half-finished drawings. Troll Blade Master. There's an elf of some kind. Orcling. Must be like a goblin. This ogre's just hanging out in his underwear. This says Caldor, which I think was a mountain, maybe. Here's elvish weapons. Shortbow, lancer shield, lance, saber, shield. Oh, look it, cool. The elves had a shield that would open and close. It was like a little disc that opened up and had like webbing for a shield. That's kind of dope. See, every once in a while there's like an idea where I'm like, that's pretty cool actually. There's some more weapons. I really like drawing swords as a kid. Can you tell? There's another elf. Another sword. Another sword. Here's an airship. It's like dirigible. Here's another Dwarven Flash Trooper. We saw those guys before. It's like a landscape. This is cool. I don't know what this is. It's like a dude in armor, but kind of looks like a robot almost. I don't really remember what that is. Kind of reminds me of like a Gaimelith from Escaflowne. Okay, here we go. Here's some lore about orcs. Orcs, the aggressive, bulky creatures that live in the Shadowland wastelands known as orcs, are strong, dangerous hulks. They stand 5 to 7 feet full grown and have skin that varies from a light brown to a dull gray. Their eyes are emotionless, blood-red pupils, and their teeth are jagged knives. Orcs were the evil warlock Kakedar's first attempt at creating the perfect species. It failed. The orcs were sluggish, slow-minded creatures, not worthy of being dubbed the perfect species, so Kakadar abandoned the pitiful creatures, expecting them to die out quickly without his guidance. Yet the orcs survived. At this time, the races were at war, and the orcs would sweep over the old battlefields, scavenging swords, armor, and other weapons. In time, the orcs were ready to join the conflict. The orcs proved themselves formidable warriors and struck in great numbers, but were defeated. They retreated back to the Shadowlands, where they lay in rest for hundreds of years, until they struck again, this time with overwhelming numbers and fierce tactics. The humans and elves band together to defeat them, and they were once again forced to retreat back to the evil deserts of the Shadowlands. Huh. Dwarves. That's like a more like Gimli-ish looking dwarf. Here's Goblin. People sometimes think goblins are small orcs. In thinking this, they are correct. People sometimes think goblins are small orcs. In thinking this, they are correct. Goblins, sometimes called orclings, are just a different breed of orc. They only stand at 3.5 feet and are very scrawny. They are rarely seen as swordsmen, but are a fast draw and good aim with a bow. Goblin archers form the main long-range force in orcish armies. Goblins are speedy, agile, and oftentimes annoying foes. Like their huge counterparts, the goblins wear their scars like medals of honor and keep their stringy hair untidy. Goblins are feared in forests, caves, and enclosed spaces where they can climb speedily across walls while firing volleys of arrows. Obviously inspired by the Moria orcs, right? Okay, here's another. I loved writing lore. Like that was, I remember just like loving that. Okay, orcs. Orcs are the warlike race that lives on the west side of the Maltor Peaks. See, this is different. I don't know what this is. Evolving in the. Oh wait, hang on. Keeping to themselves, orcs are an aggressive people, normally building huge stone cities within the caves of their homeland. Evolving in the darkness, orcs have very poor eyesight, but an incredible sense of smell, and their ears can hear a bug sneeze 50 yards away. The orcs are divided into 3 factions, the Orkneans, the Maltors, and the Zealots. All of the orcs are aggressive towards other races and will attack anyone found in Maltor. Okay, so the Orkneans, the largest and most respected of the orc factions. The Orkneans stand only a head taller than a man. Their swords are some of the finest of the land, and their nearly arrow-proof armor is sold in markets across the land. They reside in the largest cave on Maltor. The Maltors are the highly religious sect made up mostly of goblins who stand up to a man's waist. Their archers are undefeated, but their warriors lack the skill held by the Orkneans. They are the most educated of the factions due to their high priests' teachers. Most enemies retreat when they spot a legion of Maltor archers. And the Zealots, the most brutish, aggressive, uneducated creatures in Maltor. The Zealots stand as tall as 2 men and rely on their strength, not their wits. As far as weapons go, Zealots use whatever they can find: rusty cutlasses, stone spears, cracked maces. The Zealots are unorganized but deadly in battle. They despise humans and kill them on sight. So I'm not sure what that sounds different than the other ones, but anyway. That's the end of it, guys. That's it. There's so much here. Oh man, this was so fun to look through this stuff. There's so much that I remember, but there's also so much that I don't. And it's like, like I remember like things around it, like, you know what I mean, like I remember like context around like, oh man, like what was happening when I was writing this story or drawing this art. Yeah, it's just neat. So yeah, it's always been a thing for me to like write and create and stuff like that. So here, I'll put the camera, oh my god, I'll put the camera up. Hey, yeah, I exist, I'm a person. Yeah, this was really fun. I wish that I had like 50 more of these notebooks to be able to go through, because that was really fun and interesting. um yeah, it's crazy, like reading, it's one thing to read writing that's like a year or two old, but this is literally like almost 20 years old, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of a trip, if I'm being honest. Because I mean, obviously the writing is, I mean, it's amateurish or whatever, because I, was 12, 13 years old, but it's also like I still feel like I wrote it. You know what I mean? Like it still seems like my writing, like my style hasn't developed that much. Obviously, I'm a much better writer than I was, and I'm able to write a lot more, but it's still like my voice, I guess. I don't know. It's just interesting. It's a trip. That's what it is. It's a trip. Also a trip is this art that I drew of Barker 15 years before I met him. That's interesting too. Something to think about. Think about it, won't you? Noodle on that, if you will. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and call it here, because I've got a bunch of layout for a Dead Man's Guide that I still need to do tonight. But thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. This was a lot of fun. This was definitely my favorite Patreon stream that I've done yet. And I appreciate everyone coming and hanging out with me. Got some cool stuff on the horizon. I'm working on a couple more synth shard posts, and I've also got a request from Jeff Doty that I'm working on as well for a post, and there's some other stuff in the works as well. So yeah, things have been crazy, things have been busy, but things have been good. So thanks again for your support, everyone. I really appreciate it, and this has been a lot of fun. Looking forward to the next one. Yeah, that's gonna be it for me. Take care, happy gaming, all that, etc. If you're interested in more, the links are down below. Remember, if I know you're not in a hurry to get to your grandma's house. Words to live by from Thorn, the dwarf with a gun. Think about it.